like to invite Professor Edward Amatapio to come on stage and then start his speak.
Good morning. Thank you for crucifying my name. Yes, thank you for this opportunity. My presentation is basically on systems for improved graduate employability outcomes in the West African region. Okay, so there are two universities leading this particular project. That is the University of Cape Coast and then the International University of Grand Bassam from Cote d'Ivoire. One turning moment for me to champion into career, my background is basically finance and entrepreneurship. I love working with figures. But 2 years ago, when the University of Cape Coast was invited to join the Education Collaborative, I had the opportunity of meeting the Ronaldinho of career. I always call her the Ronaldinho of career. That is Abigail Warbeck. Abigail. If we are playing soccer, that would be the Ronaldinho. And in one of her presentations, she mentioned that Ashasi has 92% of students that gain employment during graduation. I said, what do you mean 92% students gain employment during graduation? And I started thinking, we have 25 public universities in Ghana, 15 traditional universities, and 10 polytechnics just converted into technical universities. 25 universities, if I'm not wrong, I can say on authority, not a single public university in Ghana can mention the percentage of students that gain employment after graduation. And this was a motivating factor for me, because I realized if we are training students and we don't know where they are, then we have a problem. So this study is basically to ensure that all member institutions in the region can track and report graduate employability. I'll be happy if during the next convening, we can share the percentages. At least my Pro-Vice Chancellor is here, and I should be able to say 20 or 30% of University of Cape Coast students gained employment after graduation. So the sub-goal is to look at, conduct a baseline study on career and employability, and then we are to develop a standard tracing study tool that will help every university to trace issues related to employability. So the data we collected is data on dedicated career center, types of services offered, methods used in tracking and enhancing employability outcome. We have about 16 countries in West Africa, and obviously there is no data on the number of universities in West Africa, but then I know for sure Nigeria has about 260 universities, Ghana has over 100 universities, so even just the two countries alone, we are looking at over 300 universities. But unfortunately, we were able to collect data from only 37 universities from 7 African countries. That's as bad. We struggle to get this information. So we got data from 37 universities from 7 different African countries. We realized that 11 of the universities were private universities and 26 happens to be public universities. On issues of dedicated career centers or career units, we realized that out of the 11 private universities, about 82% constituting 9 had career unit, functioning career unit. For the public universities, and Abigail just said it, 26 universities, only 12 had career centers, constituting 46% of the study. Management support, whether the universities have complete management support, and we have the variables I'll share with you when we finish. For the private universities, we still had 9 who said they have management support from the university, but when it got to public university, it dropped from 12 to about 8. And this is quite disheartening. Questions as to why management does not support. Those reasons mainly came from most of the public university, and number one among them is budget constraints. Public universities are financed by government. I can say for sure for Ghana, public universities, our school fees is less than $150 a year. So you have to run on the budget of $150 a year. I think it's even less than. In my university, we are paying 1,824 cedis. That's about $120. And you don't have the right to increase fees without parliamentary approval. So these things are quite, so budget constraints. Obviously, bureaucracy. I mean, one paper will have to go through more than 20 channels. If you are writing a promotion letter, you have about 2 pages addressing titles, vice chancellor, pro-vice chancellor. It goes in that hierarchy. So there is a long bureaucracy, and it goes through every unit before you get a document signed. We have some public policy and oversight issues, governance structures, infrastructure, and then hard economic activities also impacting. Now we wanted to find out whether there is a dedicated budget meant for career activities, and we realized that this happens to all universities, because the public universities that maintain their position as the number 9 then drop to number 6, and then the private universities that maintain their position at 9 drop to 6, and public universities went to 7. And that is bad. Among the budgetary things, what are some of the things that they focus on? We realized that number 1 was student programs, and then number 2 was mainly for professional development. Also, we went ahead to find out whether they have a calendar for skills development and whether universities have counseling services for students in their various universities. It came out positive. I mean, majority of the universities, about 73%, mentioned that yes, they have career services. And then we also got to know that for the calendar on skills development, about 62% of the universities have a calendar for skills development. But the problem is that the calendar is focused on entrepreneurship and internship activities. Most of the calendar, so you realize that the soft skills needed by students are things that we have basically neglected. For dedicated career curriculum in universities, we also realize that just 18.9% of universities have a curriculum situated or have career situated in their curriculum. What it means is that over 72% of universities do not introduce, they have career running, but have not embedded career into their curriculum. Engagement with employers, this is very important, and we realize the majority of the universities, about 35 out of the 37 universities have engaged one way or the other with employers in the various industries. Then on traceability for career employment, the study was in 2 folds. One was to find out a baseline, and then the other one was to also find out whether we trace and report on career activities. Institutions that track and report on career activities for both public and private, it was just 7 universities, constituting about 16.7 out of the 37. Some said they have tracked before, but they have stopped due to financial constraints. So we have about 44.4% of the universities who said, yes, we have done some form of tracking, but because of financial constraints, we have to stop. For the red color, they have never done any form of tracking. So some of the reasons, it was surprising when I got privacy concern as a reason, and I had to do a little course to find out why privacy concern. And I realized that most of the students felt that the universities didn't treat them well. So if you came for me for information, I won't give you. And if we have vice chancellors here, I think that is one of the things we need to look at very well. Resource constraints, lack of technical expertise, data collection challenges, weak alumni engagement, and inadequate infrastructures were some of the reasons that came out from the study. The methods that the 7 universities used to collect, it was very evident: alumni survey, and sometimes they use alumni database and institutional records. This is very relevant. If we want to trace, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. What is being used is what we have to look at and use in collecting. Which of the following outcomes are tracked? They mentioned that they track employability status, further educational pursuit, and then entrepreneurial ventures were the 3 main things that the 7 universities basically track. And as to whether they use the tracer studies to inform programs in the university, yes, it came out that about 14 of the universities use it to infuse into curriculum development. Some also look at enhancing career services, and then some program evaluation and mentorship. So some gaps identified. We realized that yes, dedicated career units were not available. Just about 57% of the universities had a career activity going on, and the implication of this is that portions of students do not have access to specialized career support. For management support and funding, we realize that 31% of public universities do not get access to management support. Even though 82% of the universities get, private universities get access, it came out that they need more support. Provision of career services, realize that there is a disparity in the types of career services offered across institutions. The survey highlights the need for more comprehensive services, including specialized skills development, counseling, and the creation of dedicated curriculum. We were also, for tracking methods, we realized that majority of the universities were not tracking. Therefore, one of the things we need to fill in is to ensure that we get a survey which this particular project wants to do. For opportunities, there are opportunities in creation and expansion of career units. There are opportunities in enhancing management support. There are opportunities in curriculum integration. There are opportunities in collaborations and network. Technology is not used by both public and private. When you look at the study we did, only 8 universities had hands-on technology in career activities. Alumni engagement, and then basically one of the opportunities we are looking at is the introduction of a tracer study tool where every university can just adopt, adapt, and then use. So a few recommendations is to strengthen institutional support, policy advocacy, resource allocation is very important since we have a lot of vice chancellors here. Capacity building, very instrumental, technology integration, and then the collaboration is already collaborating. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the finding we got from the study we did. My team, I have Dr. Eugene Quartin, who also assisted in the... Eugene? Okay. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we got. I want to invite Dr. George Mugabe, who happens to be the Regional Director for the East African Hub, to moderate the rest of the session. Dr. Mugabe.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Doctor. So I want us to spend the rest of the time for this session to kind of reflect a bit. And I know in the morning, one thing for me, what I normally enjoy with these convenings is we meet, we network, we identify the gaps, and then we share some of the solutions by learning what others are doing. And the next step is what else are we going to do taking back to our universities? So for me, I've had the privilege to work with a friend of mine around the systems change program to improve these systems. And I want for us to reflect a little bit and then have a chance to see what else has actually been happening elsewhere and what has been done. And if you allow me, Professor Bohene, I think one of the challenge that has been identified here is the lack of support from the leadership. And having the experience working with University of Cape Coast, could you please share with us what are some of those innovative leadership techniques or strategies that you put in place to unleash the potential of UCC as a public institution to bring out all those strengths and create the impact that you have already started seeing through the systems change program for employability in building that ecosystem?
I think this is ambushing. I've been
I apologize.
But that is fine. I believe those who were part of yesterday's discussions, I indicated that fortunately for University of Cape Coast, I have had quite a number of experiences before I became the Pro-Vice Chancellor. I've been working on various projects, especially with my German counterparts. And one of the highlights of those projects is practice orientation, industry-academia collaboration, and employability. And I also had the opportunity when they were starting the systems change. I think when Ashase brought the invitation, fortunately the Vice Chancellor invited me. I wasn't the Pro-Vice Chancellor then, to handle the project. And I remember immediately he gave it to me. We decided that if it is career oriented, there was the need for us to involve the Dean of Students, because most of the things we'll be doing it with the Dean of Students. And also we identified other structures already existing in the universities. As it's been indicated, in these public institutions, there is bureaucracy. And I always tell people that when we say someone is entrepreneurial, it is not only starting businesses. You have to find new and different ways of doing things. So I remember when I was the Dean for International Education, when we are signing MOUs, it will have to go through various processes. And I identified a lawyer who will look at the MOU. So what I do is I send one through the normal process, and the second one, I just take it to the lawyer. He will look at it for me that day. And by the time the other MOU comes, we have signed it already. And so when this project came, we decided that how do we find innovative ways of not going through the bureaucracies. So the Dean of Students, and fortunately, we had established the Design Thinking and Innovation Hub. And when I did that proposal for the Vice Chancellor, I made it in such a way that whoever is the director reports directly to the Vice Chancellor. And so if you use those structures, and now you want to implement various activities, then you don't have to go through the normal long channel or the normal bureaucracies, because you have direct access. So when Edward and Eugene were selected as co-leaders, anytime they want to run a program, they don't go through anybody. They go through the Design Thinking Innovation Hub, they go through the Dean of Students, and they go through me. So sometimes when they are going through me as the Pro-Vice Chancellor, they just have to inform me that, Prof, we are doing A, B, C, D. They discuss with the Dean of Students, straight to the Design Thinking and Innovation Hub, and they do whatever they want to do in relation to the systems change program. So usually you have to find an innovative way of going around the system. Otherwise, the bureaucracies will stifle your initiative. And because we've taken it through the Design Thinking and Innovation Hub, yes, we have funding from Ashasi, but the Innovation Hub also have funding from other sources. So whilst Ashasi is supporting, the system change program is supporting, we are also able to get funding from other, and what we have even done is, with the Design Thinking and Innovation Hub, we don't look at only international funding. I myself have been going to organizations and businesses and some of them have come on board. GIZ, we are using some of those funding to also support the activities. So those are some of the innovative ways by which we've gone around making sure it is rooted through systems, structures, processes already existing in the university. And I remember someone mentioned, because at the end of the day, we have to look at the sustainability. Beyond the systems change program, how do we sustain? And so far as it is part of the Design Thinking and Innovation Hub, and Edward we now have Industry Liaison Office. We've brought the person in charge on board. So they are rooted in systems. In future, if I'm not there, if Edward is not there, that process or that system will still be operating. So that's how we have managed around it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor Bohene. I think that ties up with the previous presentation on whatever we do for sustainability. I think it's important to find ways to embed with other projects that are already going on within our own institutions, and if they already have a budget, it kind of helps to circumvent the budgetary needs. Now, I think one of the other gaps that was identified in this research was, as much as we know, for example, when you talk about employability, the issue of soft skills, many institutions may want to do the same, but they lack capacity. So how does someone go about it? How does someone within their own institution improve that capacity within the same limits that we have in terms of budget? So I want, and I apologize again, Abigail, could you please share with us some of those innovative strategies that I know Ashesi has been able to do a wonderful job in terms of tracking, in terms of capacity building. You as a unit, what do you do best at Ashesi to ensure that this success is sustained throughout, and what other institutions can learn from you and maybe see how they can replicate in their own institutions?
Thank you, George. George, could you please repeat the question?
So one of the challenge that has been observed in this research is the lack of capacity. And as much as institutions may appreciate the need to have employability ecosystems within their own institutions, at the same time have the challenge of budget. Ashesi, on the other hand, has been able to do a wonderful job in terms of tracking, which requires resources, both financial and non-financial, to sustain that success of tracking and reporting, and also improving the capacity from within, as well as mentoring others. So what are some of those best practices that you have as a unit? We call you the Ronaldinho, both of us, of employability, that other institutions here that can learn and probably take back to their own institutions and see if they can replicate it.
Okay, thank you, George. So I think, first of all, something that has been shared already is management support for us as an institution in career services. And I actually have two of my colleagues here with me, Nala and Alberta. And the budget or the funding that we receive to support the work we do, it comes from management. Management directly supports that. So for us, it's very critical that management buys into what you're doing. And you can also create a case for yourself as a department as to why management should look at what you're doing. So what we, and I've shared on this before, what we do as a department is, and we call it making an elevator pitch for our department. We look at the different competencies, if I should say, that the institution is looking at. So for Ashesi, we have what we call learning goals. And these learning goals are what drives the institution. We say this is what we want to see every graduate that comes out of Ashesi. We want to see them exemplify that, right? So what we do is, when we take the internship data, we let it report specifically to those learning goals. So for an institution, it tells us that what we are saying we want to churn out, this is how industry is ranking us on that. And so in that case, management looks critically at that data, because it also tells them whether or not they are performing per the mission and the vision of the institution. Therefore, management wants to look at what we are doing and support that. So I think if there's, in terms of any takeaways for institutions, is how are you drawing attention from the powers that be in your institution to the work that you're doing? What are data-driven solutions that you can provide to management, so management understands the volume of the work and the impact of the work that you're doing and why they need to support it, right? So apart from that as well, for us, industry collaboration is key. To get industry support the work that you do, because industry is going to give you the feedback. Why should they give you feedback? Why should they be concerned about what is going on in your institution? Why should they collaborate with you, right? Creating a very close-knitted relationship with your employers is very critical to the success of the work you do around employability as well. I think in terms of support, the Education Collaborative does a great job to pair or support member institutions who are interested in replicating some of these strategies and processes in their institutions. So for UCC, for example, they were part of the Systems Change Program. That is how come we got connected with them. So we are happy to support institutions. The Collaborative has another program called the Career Strategy Workshop. Actually, we are presenting on that in the next session after this, so that institutions can understand what are the systems they need to start implementing to be able to reach the same impact that institutions like UCC are having or are making right now. So that you go through training as an institution, and then you get supported by the collaborative to be able to contextualize these solutions to your own institution and to also drive the same impact that you're seeing other institutions gain. So I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, I'll come to, I think Dr. Patrick wants to say something.
So I just wanted to add a bit, because we've talked a lot about management approval, and just to share a little bit about how management at Ashesi thinks about this. Now, first, let me say that there have been times in the past when Abigail has come and asked me for more resources. And I've said, we don't have any more resources, make what you have work. Or I will ask, you should ask for more people, and I would say, well, how big are we? And I'll do a calculation per capita of us versus other universities that I know are doing well. And say, look, we can be more expensive than this other great university in the US that I think is doing a good job. So management does think a lot about resources, and no matter how much resources you have, it's always limited. And there's so many things you're trying to do. And so you're having to make decisions about where to allocate those resources. So making her pitch that she talked about is really important, because she has to sort of make the case for why she needs this extra person. And she has to make it in a compelling way. The second thing is that in our case, the management of the institution, the senior leadership team and myself, we are accountable to a board of directors. And that board, in reviewing our performance, looks at our key performance indicators. And so we have a set of key performance indicators. And those KPIs actually include employability of our students. And it includes how our students are doing on our learning goals. So we actually have a strong incentive to get data that we report in our KPIs to the board of directors. And the board also wants to know how we're performing. And so, I mean, if you want management to prioritize this, you have to find a way to make this part of the key performance indicators of the institution. And I think the Sub-Saharan Africa ranking is going to help do that, because as universities are having to report on this sort of thing, having that data is going to be something that vice chancellors are going to care about, that boards are going to care about. So two things, just having the KPIs that are clear, that's a sort of an incentive for management to prioritize this. I can tell that Professor Adebayo has research as one of his KPIs. He talks about it a lot. But that makes a huge difference. And then you also have to make your case to management. And you have to, and making the case is not only talking about the need, but also convincing me that you're actually being efficient. Because if you come and say, I need, you know, $100,000 a year to do something, and I say, well, there's $100,000 here or $100,000 for some other project. I need to hire faculty to do something, or there's some research project. But you can show me that that $100,000 is a very efficient use of the money. That is one way to compel the decision.
Thank you, Patrick. Maybe before you give away the mic, because one of the things that came out of the research is when we send out, we have tools to collect data from our graduates, and there's the issue of privacy. And as they research a bit further, you know, graduates, they had this feeling, you didn't treat me very well. So as a leader, what would you recommend institutions to put in place to ensure that we have systems that enable us, when we go back to our graduates, they should be comfortable enough and even compelled to give us the data that we are looking for in order to improve systems for other graduates?
So that's a really good question. I think that career services, when they're talking with alumni, those students have already left the institution. And it's really important to be measuring while they're students at the institution what the experience is. So in our case, we have course evaluations and faculty evaluations. After every semester, students who will rate the course and the faculty interns on their experience in the class. We also have general sort of campus satisfaction surveys. So we have a survey where students will report to us their experience of the university across different dimensions. You know, what do they feel about how they're treated or their access to technology, the IT system? What do they feel about their engagement with the finance department, which collects their fees, right? So you're trying to collect fees, but you have to do it a nice way. How do they feel about general student services? How do they feel about housing and the quality of housing? So if you're tracking that throughout the semester, then you're identifying where things are, you know, off course and correcting, so that by the time they graduate, they're feeling good about the institution. And we think about our students. Many of our students today are beneficiaries of you know, donors and the university. But we see them as future benefactors of the institution for other students. And so if you treat them well, then they're going to become engaged alumni who will engage the institution in other ways. You know, they'll give funding, they will come back to the classroom and share, they will mentor students. And so, you know, data tracking has to be something that you're doing throughout, you know, the experience of the university. You don't wait till they're done. And on the privacy concern, I think that it's important when your data collection tool may be getting some demographic data. Are they a man or a woman? You know, what year did they graduate, etc. But if you omit the name, so you're not collecting identifier information, then the privacy concern sort of is significantly lowered, because it's sort of an anonymous report to you. You verify somehow that this is an alum who's completing the survey, but once you verify that, you drop that identity from the survey, other than just the other demographic data that you care about.
Thank you so much. I want one other thing that a quick thing that was observed, and I think it was also spoken in the previous presentation, was the soft skills. Today, data shows that employers are looking beyond technical skills. They also focus more on soft skills. And this has actually been quite difficult for institutions to identify, package them, and also impart that knowledge. So if you allow me, Professor Bailey, could you please share with us around the work that is being done in East Africa and what Kepler is leading around the soft skill curriculum that is available for everyone else to look at and see how they can implement it in their own institutions?
Thank you very much. First, I want to really congratulate University of Cape Coast for an amazing work. I think that I really like to encourage you to write this system change that you brought in, how it happened. I think it would be a great publication for many big universities to your scale, how such a big institution can be responsive to innovation and transformation. Because, this discussion of big university, how can they adapt very quickly and move on? I think that your experience is a great experience, and if it is written in a way of causality connection, how it happened, the story is nicely captured. I think that is really a way to scale experience in the region. So when it comes to soft skill, it happened with our experience in Ethiopia and Rwanda. When we ask the employer what really drives graduate, what they are looking for, more than anything, soft skill was the outstanding need among our employer partner. Then we ask them, these universities are giving this soft skill in a kind of spread way as a course. So when we bring them as a package with a clear outcome and orientation, what the employers are concerned about, like professionalism, communication, digital skill, focusing basically on delivering task, active listening, working in a team, and this kind of skill can be actually taught in a better way if they are packaged in such a way that the student, when they come to the class, they are told, hey, you are coming here to learn like kind of a driving license or a transition to a job instead of taking a course to pass an examination. So the mindset is a bit different. So we did it with Ethiopia and Rwanda, and our experience has been, it's an add-on course. It can vary depending on the program, from like 4 weeks to 8 weeks training. And we found that it can really change employment significantly. So for example, our data shows like in Ethiopia, we have 85% employment within a year. In Rwanda, a bit higher, 90% within a year. So our curriculum is available. We can share it through the Education Collaborative. I think this is something to look at and explore. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Bailey. I know we are running out of time, so I want to encourage all of us, as Dr. Edward mentioned, a call to action to all of us. Let's use this opportunity to gather here together. Let's network, and if you have any questions, how can you replicate some of these best practices that we have all heard here? What is the support that is available from the education side, education collaborative side? Please, let's continue to network and let's work together to scale that impact across all our African higher learning institutions. Thank you so much.